Hello, and welcome to the Guilbault Girls Show, where you will have the opportunity to hear from mothers, fathers, siblings, and individuals themselves about their journey of living with a disability. I know, it's called Guilbault Girls, but we have a bonus for you as we get the Guilbault boys to interview some of the dads and siblings and get their perspectives too. We'll also have special guests from time to time to share the many resources that are available to those living with a disability and their families. So get ready to laugh, smile, cry, maybe even get a little angry when you hear some of these stories of their day-to-day struggles. But let's not forget their many triumphs. As they say, it takes a village. And if it weren't for our village, we wouldn't be where we are today. So join us. Welcome, everybody, back to the Guilbault Girls. And here with us today is Billy Price from Billy Footwear. If you tuned in to the prior episode, we learned all about Billy Footwear, where you can find the shoes, how amazing they are. So now this one, we're actually going to go ahead and dive a little bit deeper into Billy's story and his journey from when he was in an accident, and just kind of find out, what helped him and got him through, and just more about Billy. So thank you so much for joining us. Again, I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
So if you want to just kind of tell the folks a little bit about how did you have your injury, what had happened, and kind of walk us kind of step by step of what were your ups and downs and some of the challenges that you faced.
Okay. Wow, there's lots to choose from.
I know.
So I was, when I was a freshman in college, I was 18 years old, and I was in school for about 2.5 weeks. I joined a fraternity, and there was one night that I fell out of a window. I fell out of a 3-story window. It was a head first fall to concrete, and in that instantaneous moment, I broke my neck and I broke my back, and it was a spinal cord injury in both locations. And just like that, my life changed forever because I became paralyzed really from the chest down. My paralysis, it affects all 4 limbs, so I'm considered a C6 quadriplegic, meaning that, at that level of injury, I can move my arms and I can move my wrists going up, but I can't make my brain tell my fingers to move. So because of that, I have limited hand dexterity. Also, my triceps, the biceps are the ones that, you can bring your arm like up to your shoulder, but the triceps are the ones where you can extend your arm out against gravity. Okay. So that's also, that's a muscle class that I don't have. I'm not able to tell my arm to straighten out like that. So anyway, I broke my neck at 18. I was in rehab for about 5.5 months. And during those 5.5 months, it was really trying to piece my life back together, both physically and mentally, trying to figure out what wheelchairs would replace my legs, how to write my name, how to brush my teeth, how to do all that stuff that used to be so easy that all of a sudden became much more challenging.
And I think that, like with us, Faith was born with cerebral palsy, and we have another friend that we met through Kennedy Krieger, where her son was, playing soccer, doing great. And then all of a sudden he ended up coming down with this high fever and was in the hospital in a coma. And now he's, in a wheelchair and, has a lot of different challenges that he faces now. And I think that it's, Faith knows no different. She was born this way. I think it's got to be, harder when, you were able to do everything before and then all of a sudden your life just changes. How does one get past that? Like how, what helped you get through? I know there's got to be days where you were just, forget about it, but like how'd you get through? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a lot,
It is.
I know that's a very deep and open-ended question, but
Right. Yeah. And there's really no easy answer. And plus, it's not like it's a competition. Life is hard. Life is hard anyways, right? Mm-hmm. You can be the richest person on the planet and it doesn't mean life's easy. Yep. Or you can be the poorest person on the planet, doesn't mean life is easy. It's a challenge across the board. So I can really only, speak to, I guess, my own journey. Right. But I mean, when I broke my neck, I all I could think about was the life I had before. I mean, I was a very active kid. I was fiercely independent. Played lots of sports. I was very active in the outdoors. I really felt like I could take on any sort of challenge and find some sort of answer. I mean, I think that may have been a little bit of arrogance at the time. I was 18-year-old kid, right? Like you're invincible. But at the same time, I don't know. I wasn't expecting. It's not like I had a plan to move forward, like in life, but
Right.
being a wheelchair user was not part of that plan.
Yeah.
So when I broke my neck and I was laying on that hospital table and, going through rehab, all I could relate to was, kicking a soccer ball, like skiing down the slopes. And then all of a sudden, just this sense of feeling like I got robbed of that life. And it took me to a dark place. I mean, mentally, I had a very difficult time grappling with this new reality. Mm-hmm. And so the question of like, how did I overcome that? I would say the way I overcame it was I hit rock bottom. I mean, I got to the point where I was just feeding myself such toxic language and toxic talk, and I got to the point where I was convinced that it wasn't worth living if I couldn't walk. Mm-hmm. And in other words, I would have rather been dead than just not being able to walk. I mean, that's not a good spot to be in.
No.
And really what happened was I got to the point where I scared myself. I'm like where I was mentally, it was scaring me. And what it did was it flipped this switch to all of a sudden realize that I was in such a dark place that something had to change. Mm-hmm. And I was fortunate to have a lot of friends and family around me to really encourage me. It wasn't like they were trying to fix me, but at least they were painting this picture of potential.
Right.
And I made the choice to change and let go really of what I lost and really embrace what I still had. And with that new mindset, it's not like everything magically became easy. So it was a grind, but at least gave purpose and direction to move forward.
Right. I don't know. Have you ever heard of, and I probably am going to pronounce her name wrong, but it's Joni Tadia Erickson or Joni Erickson Tadia. So
I haven't, but I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'll, when we're done, I'll make sure I'll forward you her information. But I saw her speak one time, and it was somewhere around here in Maryland. But she was younger, and they were out at the water, and she dove into, I don't know what it was, whether she dove into water. I don't know whether it wasn't a lake, it was the bay or wherever. But when she dove, she ended up hitting her head. And I don't know if she jumped off a cliff. It was so long ago. But same thing. She was paralyzed. And I think she could only move her neck, if I'm not mistaken. But she found the Lord, and she goes around, she preaches. She has a nonprofit, Joni's Kids, I think it's called. I'll have to send you the information. But I read her book. And like you, I mean, and even her talking, just hitting that rock bottom, really hitting that rock bottom. And you just feel the words and feel like, oh my God, like how, just the stories and some of the day-to-day struggles. And it makes you think. You can't take things for granted, but she chose. And now it's like she's helping others, and there's a purpose. You're born and put on this earth for something, and whether you agree with it or not, but you're changing the world too. Now, with helping people with disabilities, making our lives easier. Like there's always a reason behind something. I don't know what God's reasoning is, but there is. But yeah, I'll definitely send you her information, because her story is very similar in a way, of yours, I think.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. There's so many inspiring stories out there. I mean, everybody has a story. I mean, right. Everybody does. It's just, and this is why I appreciate being on your show, because it's important to talk about this stuff. It's important to create platforms for people to be able to share.
It is.
And it's not like we necessarily need to like say this is the solution, but it's just like, let's talk about the struggle and like together, let's figure it out.
And it's hard, you know,
we're all better for it.
When we started the show, it's like, okay, I want to start the show, and then how do I talk to people? And like, you know, I don't want to offend anybody, or what if I ask them something too deep? And I was like, I think that's why I put it off for so long. But it's not, because you want to be able to share your story. You want to be able to tell tell them how you got through things, and you know that, yeah, you had those bad times, but there's always a positive, you know, you always got to look up, and also share those resources, because there's so many people out there that have no clue, you know, that, you know, if there's something that you did or found that helped you, it might help them. They may not have known about it, you know. And it really is just kind of digging deep and sharing those personal stories, and, you know, and those vulnerable moments. And, you know, in her documentary, one of the girls was talking about the difference between, you know, when people say, oh, you know, you inspired me, or, you know, she doesn't want to be an inspiration, you know, because she doesn't want anybody to feel bad or take pity on her. But then in a sense, you know, the word inspiration, you could take it in so many different ways. And sometimes her and I will talk, you know, she's like, well, why am I inspiring them? I'm like, because they're just looking at how you're overcoming things. And, you know, if that can make a difference in their day of, you know, I've had people say, oh, you know, I look at her and, you know, not that they feel bad, but it's like, look at the struggles and the barriers that she has to deal with every day. And she's really overcoming them in a positive way, and with a smile on her face. And, you know, it's more of that. It's not like they're looking at you like, oh, do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
no, I know exactly what you're saying. I mean, it's not like you wake up and you're like, all right, well, everybody look at me, I'm an inspiration. It's like, no, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to live my day the best I can. If you find inspiration, that brilliant, but I'm not making myself out to be like inspirational. I'm just trying to get to the day, just like everybody else.
Right. And so that was always like our word. She's like, well, some people like say inspiration and some don't.
And then my other friend just the same way. So it's like, I don't know.
But it's okay when people say that you inspire them. They you know, you inspire me to.
Oh yeah, no, I know.
To do things.
Well, the other one too is when you get the comments like, well, I can't. There's no way I could do what you're doing. Or like, I can't, if I were in that spot, and then just like project like whatever their thought is in that moment. It's like, well, you don't know how you'll respond. It's just like, I mean, like, how can you say that? Like, try to speculate like how you'll be in that spot. Like, you don't know until you're in that spot.
Exactly.
And when you're in that spot, you're going to do everything you possibly can to do the best you can. And, you know, we're all going to fail, but we're going to try to learn from those failures and do better on the next go. So It's just a matter of not quitting, just keep moving forward.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you, when you got injured, you know, you're in college, you have all your buddies. Did they, were they there for you? And even like your relationships prior to your injury, did you lose a lot of friends just because because a lot of people talk about that too, because, you know, you have friends and then you have a child with a disability and your life changes, and, you know, you kind of you lose a lot of people in that process, but then you gain a lot of new people in your life too. How was that?
Yeah. You know, I think I was really fortunate in that regard. I didn't lose any friends, and I was also in a transitional part of my life anyways, transitioning out of high school, going into college, which is already just a new space where you just meet a ton of new people. Mm-hmm. So I was only in school for, 2.5 weeks. So I had already met these new people. And then when I got out of rehab, I was actually fortunate to go back and move into the fraternity that I joined, and just by crazy coincidence ended up being the only house on the entire campus that didn't have stairs in front.
Wow.
So I was able to get in, and then they made a room on the first floor that was adjacent to a room that had plumbing. So there's a bathroom next door. So I basically had my own little apartment on the first floor, and I got to be reacquainted with the guys that I had just met. So those guys, I mean, they knew me a little bit as a non-wheelchair user, mm-hmm. but the relationship was really built around me being a wheelchair user.
Right.
So I was accepted for who I was. I mean, it was a relationship based on character, and yes, I just roll around in wheels, but it was really, the friendship was based on character. So I guess I was kind of lucky in that regard, that I don't know if it was a timing thing or just what, but I think I would say I gained more friends than lost. It's not like I gained friends because I was in a chair. It was probably the timing part of it.
So bringing up another thing. So have you ever heard of Darius Goes West?
I have not.
Okay, so that's another one I'm going to send you.
Okay.
And then the documentary called 7 Yards, where he got paralyzed playing football, and then he adopted 4 kids.
Yeah, seven yards.
So
I think
good.
it was called. That was a really good movie. So Darius Goes West. He has a form of muscular dystrophy, and we actually got to see him speak as well. And I have his DVD, if you will, and he had. And I'm trying to think of if it was. I don't think it was people from college, or maybe it was college, or people that he met along the way through therapy. But they ended up. Long story short, he wanted to get his wheelchair pimped out by MTV, and they went and traveled cross country to California because they wanted to go and get it pimped out. So it's his whole journey. Like, he had never been in the water before, never been to the ocean before. So it was like his friends taking care of him and taking him out, and they brought him in, and like, you know, they carried him into the water, and, you know, just all the different things that they did for him. And it was just an awesome journey. So that's another one you need to watch. But yeah, it was 7 Yards it was called. So did they help you a lot, or did you have an aide that would come in and help you while you were in college?
It was a little bit of both. So for the most part, I was pretty independent. I mean, as soon as I got into my chair, I was good to go. So I use both a manual chair and a power chair.
Okay.
I don't really use the power chair much now because, well, it's just easier to navigate indoors, like in a manual chair. But when I was in college, like to get around campus, to get to these classes, I mean, those are long distances. So I spent a lot of the time in the power chair. So it was awesome. I had my power chair like on the first floor, and then I would just call the guys, and one person would grab my knees, and the other person on the armpits, and they would lift me from my manual chair into my power chair, and then I was good to go. So, and just people just understood that was kind of the routine. So that was helpful. I also had guys help me with my shoes because at that time these shoes didn't exist. So they were helping me with my shoes. That was the one piece of the puzzle I couldn't sort out. But then the other part that was, I guess, more like hygiene and stuff like that, like helping with like a bathroom routine. That's when I had somebody come in and help me out. And but being on a college campus, there were lots of nursing students. So it was really easy to have to find somebody that could help me out, just kind of temporary basis. Okay.
Now, how did you meet your wife?
So my wife, she, it's kind of a fun story. I worked at a summer camp for many, many years, and it was a Boy Scout summer camp. And the last week of that summer camp, they hosted the freshman orientation of a local college. And my wife happened to go to that college. So when I was assisting at this camp, our paths crossed, and we had probably, I don't even know, like 5-10 minute conversation or whatever. We have no idea what we talked about. We kind of think about it now, and we like put words into the scene and stuff like that. So I don't really even know if like what's in our minds now like actually happened like in the time. But whatever the case, like our paths crossed. And then 5 years later after that, she was in physical therapy school, getting her doctorate in physical therapy. And that program requires you to do some independent research. So she had a study that she was looking for participants, and her criteria was someone that had a spinal cord injury within a certain range. And I happened to fit the criteria. So I, became one of the research participants, I guess. And when we were doing the interview, it's like, you know what? I swear we've met before. And we kind of pieced it back together. And then we pieced it back to that particular summer camp. So it was just kind of wild. And the joke is I interviewed well. And then we started dating. And then about 7 years later, we got married.
That is so awesome. And how many kids do you have?
We have one kiddo. We have one kiddo now, and we have another kiddo on the way.
Oh, how awesome. Do you know if you're having a boy or a girl?
We have a girl coming.
Aw, when is she due?
Coming. She is due the end of March.
Oh, how awesome. That is so
So
awesome.
we have a 3-year-old boy and then a girl coming in March. They'll be separated by about 3.5 years, 3 years, 4 months.
Now, do you have any hard conversations with him? Like, does him noticing that you're in a wheelchair and he sees other people that aren't, or is he, does he have questions or it?
No. Well, I mean, he has questions. I mean, he's a very inquisitive kid. He has questions about everything. And he's also, he's just a really independent kid, wants to do everything himself. And but I think that just kind of comes to being a toddler. But in terms of like the intellectual, just like kind of comparing, like asking the question why I'm in a chair and why other people aren't in a chair, it's just acceptance. Like his dad's in a wheelchair. He's really helpful. I mean, definitely. So I have a wheelchair van, and he's always excited to be the one to open up the door and get the ramp down and close the door. And if there's anything that all of a sudden I drop that I can't reach or whatever, he's able to get down there and get it. So I think he's growing up with his father being in a chair, so he doesn't know anything different.
Yep. And I love to see all of this too for her as well, because there's times where she'll question, am I ever going to get a boyfriend? Am I ever going to get married? She wants to have kids, and and her cerebral palsy, it affects her. She uses canes in the house. She uses a walker too, and then long distances, the mall or, on campus, because Maryland School for the Blind is huge. She'll use a wheelchair and stuff. And then with her fine motor and her balance. So like even, cooking, like she can put something in the microwave and cook it, but for her to transfer like, a hot bowl of soup or something, it's, so she's always going to need that assistance there in that way. But, she'll always talk about that, and she's big on TikTok. So she's always like following people. And she's like, Mom, I saw this lady and she has CP2 and she has a kid. And I'm like, so, I love to see and hear the stories and say, look, you can have this too. Just because you have a disability doesn't mean you can't, you know what I mean?
One time I was helping my roommate. Well, she had made a bowl of soup, and she was like, can you carry this? I'm going to burn myself. And I was like, I can't carry a bowl of soup. And then she ended up burning herself. I felt so bad.
Was that at Missile?
That was in the hospital, actually.
Oh.
With Ellie.
Oh my. So let me see. What other questions did I have for you? So when you, was that a concern for you about how much you were going to be able to help when you had children?
Yeah. And that kind of question, I mean, that extends to a lot of things too. It was a concern for me, but not for my wife. Because I mean, it was, I don't know. I mean, I was accepted for who I am. I was accepted for who I am. I was accepted for what I can do. And I think the part that I was struggling with, that I haven't thought about this in a long time, actually, that I was kind of missing and I was, ignoring, was just more of the, like the intellectual side, like being like present, to be able to, still, like, just because you can't necessarily stand up and run over and pick somebody up and give them a big hug. I mean, I can still give hugs, but like go and pick them up. It's just like, that's like the physical, but at the same time, having the emotional availability and emotional compassion, and to be there and be present and console, you don't need to walk for that. And that's the part that I was forgetting and I was dismissing. So, we've gone in with eyes wide open. Yeah.
And because that's what I was going to ask you, next was, what advice would you give someone else out there that was going through a similar situation, like, that are having those same thoughts, what advice would you give them,
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'd say we're all on this planet for something. And I think we can all add value in a number of different ways. And I'm just speaking for myself, like looking in the mirror, it's like I get blinded by, like, sometimes the wheelchair just makes me forget that I have more to offer than I may give myself credit. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of getting tongue tied at this point, but
I know.
But at the same time, it's just a matter of remembering that like we all have something to offer.
Exactly. Well, I can't. I mean, I really, really, really can't thank you enough for doing this interview with us too. You know, and we are big fans. We have been big fans since the first time we heard about you, and you're definitely making a difference in a lot of people's lives in more ways than you can imagine. And I wish you nothing best but the best with everything. And I'm excited that you're going to have a little girl, and so you're going to have a little boy and a little girl. Little boy and a little girl. I'm so excited. Yeah. I have one more question. Which I had emailed you about. So I'm a big thing about you know, words. Words are very meaningful and very powerful, especially in this day we live in now. You know, right. What is, if you could choose one word, what would it be and why?
I'm so happy that you posed that challenge. I mean, because I thought long and hard about what that word would be, and there's so many just amazing words that I just that come to mind, but the one that really seemed to, you know, step out amongst the rest was the word perseverance. And it's just a matter of just enduring. I mean there's so much wrapped up in that word. I mean, it's about having patience, it's about not quitting, it's about, you know, if you fail, not throwing in the towel, but just like kind of learning what went wrong, ask the question, make the adjustment, and then move forward. And, you know, moving forward can be like leaps and bounds, or it could be just an absolute crawl inch by inch, but you're still doing the absolute best to move forward. And I would say that, you know, way back when I reflect on like just being in that dark place, that rock bottom spot, and then making the choice to change, it was anything. I mean, you're grabbing anything. I mean, just to be able to all of a sudden like be in a chair going like, all right, today I'm going to go 1 foot. Tomorrow I'm going to go 2 feet. The next day, 3 feet. It's like, that is such slow progress, but it is progress. And then all these different elements that would just knock me back 2 steps, but still you've gone 3 steps, you're back 2. So you're still, you know, it's a net moving forward. And that's the same type of mentality that we really injected into our business. We want to make a difference at one person at a time. Like, you make the difference with one person's world, that person will share it with 2. And then those people share it with 2. And just like that, there's a compound effect. And then somehow this little brand based out of Seattle, Washington is heard about around the planet. So that same type of compound effect can happen in our daily lives. It's just a matter of being consistent and persevering. Just don't quit.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. So I'm going to hand stamp that word on a key. You want it on a keychain?
A keychain would be brilliant. That sounds awesome.
And this way you can see it every day as your little daily reminder. And before we close, though, I did hear this before, and I want you to say it again because it was so powerful. But I've heard you tell the story of when and why you celebrate your birthday. And can you just share with your listeners? Yeah,
absolutely. And it's actually not my birthday. It's the day that I broke my neck.
Right.
So my birthday, whatever. I just kind of burn over that. But it's the day that I broke my neck. It was October 9th, 1996. That was the actual day. So the most special day of the year for me is October 9th. And it's crazy how a day that, you know, you really could see it as being a tragic one. For me, it's a day to celebrate, because if you crunch the numbers, like falling 3 stories head first to concrete, I mean, the numbers just aren't going to work in your favor. So it's a day that could have turned out a lot different. I mean, I could have very well died right there on the spot. So granted that it's been over 25 years, what that really means is I've been living on bonus time for 25 years. So every October 9th, it's just like, wow, you know, another year that I very well couldn't have had. But that also puts pressure, you know, on going like, you know what, it really like makes an understanding of like our time on this planet is very finite. And we really got to do everything that we can to, whatever our mission is, whatever, you know, our vision is, I mean, you really try to make the most of it. And like I want to do, there's so many people that help me along the way that I want to be able to add value however I can and try to make a difference. And we definitely try to inject that into our brand as really the brand ethos.
Awesome. All right. And then if you just want to tell listeners one more time how they can find you.
Yep. So our website is billyfootwear.com. It's a great resource to be able to find all of our other retail partners. There's a store location link that can point you all around the globe, all through Europe, Australia, South America, Canada. There's just lots of little gems on there. But on social, across the board, it's at Billy Footwear.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you again, and we'll be in touch.
All right, Karen. Faith, thank you so much, guys. Such a pleasure.
Okay. Thank you for joining us as we spread awareness through our personal stories and the many resources shared. You can help us by joining our village simply by sharing our show to the masses. If you would like to support the Guilbault Girls on another level, click on the link in the show notes to make a donation in any amount. Add your address and you'll receive a hand-stamped token with the word village on it in appreciation. Be sure to subscribe to our Guilbault Girls podcast and YouTube show, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Guilbault Girls. Till next time.